to the brief presentation of two of our main projects, which we thought might be of interest for you. We would like to introduce you a bit into what the Institute of Advanced Studies in Levant Culture and Civilization does in Bucharest, because I'm sure you must be wondering this. And before that, I will just go online and put the Institute website on. Okay, just a second. Okay. And I will go into the English version because we have the Romanian and an English version of the website. So before the website becomes visible, whenever we think about Levant, we think of a very exotic place. You know, the Levant, you probably heard about it from the Arabian tales, you think of the Shahrazad's stories, you think of Lawrence of Arabia. But the thing is that we at the Institute for Advanced Studies in Levant Culture and Civilization, given that in the name of the Institute we have this term culture and civilization, we're going deeper and beyond these ideas that most of you, I'm sure, have heard about. So what do we do at the Levant Institute? Because this is the short version of the name. We have this beautiful mandala as a symbol, we have the colors of the sand dunes, but beyond this extraordinary perspective of imagination, we go deeper into the study of this geographical area which spreads from the Middle East to Northern Africa, the MENA countries, the Caucasus and the Western Balkans. And we study it from several perspectives. We study it from a historical perspective, and you shall see this divided in the 5 main programs that we're developing at the Institute, of which the two projects that I will present are a part of. We're studying it from a geographical and geological point of view, capitalizing on the experiences of and expertise, of course, of our members from the leadership, President Constantinescu himself and our scientific director, Dan Grigorescu. We're studying it from a biological and natural heritage point of view, and of course, given it's part of the name, we're studying it from a cultural point of view, and of course, civilizational. And what we aim is to expand the area of research in this geographical space, create connections with peoples and authorities from these areas, create a space of dialogue, intercultural and interfaith dialogue, bringing together not only the decision factors, the decision makers, but also spiritual leaders, because they are very important in the area, and also the young generation, and not to forget the key connector, the key link, which is the academic milieu, because we are somehow a pole position for the academic milieu. Not to bother you more with a description without images, just let me accept the cookies, and let me take you, this is the first page of the Institute, and if you're interested, please access it, and you will have a lot of details about what we actually do. This is one of our main projects. It's dedicated to the European Union. It's somehow joined with the fact that since May 2021 we have the Conference on the Future of Europe, which has been launched. It was the platform was launched at the same time. And I will tell you more about it in the PowerPoint presentation. Next, we have the other project, which focuses on a multidisciplinary anticipation of the future, dealing with the post-pandemic world. The pandemic offered us a great opportunity to explore and go deeper into the implications. Beyond the medical ones, we're not doctors, we're only doctors in sciences or history or humanities, we're not medical professionals, but we were thinking of exploring what the pandemic will, what actually brought and will entail for the future in several other fields of expertise. And we shall talk about that later. And further on, we have the main scientific research programs. We have 5 scientific research programs, under which we have several other projects. The first research program deals with recent history and the anticipation of the future. And here we have the project dedicated to the pandemic, the one dedicated to the European Union, and another one dedicated to the recent history of the Levant, focusing from a chronological perspective from the revolutions of Eastern Europe, the 1980s, 90s, to the Arab Spring, and covering the area from a historical, geopolitical, cultural perspective as well. Further on, we have the projects dedicated to cultural diplomacy and the culture of peace. It is here that we have worked with the Academy for Cultural Diplomacy here in Berlin. The first one is the Levant Initiative for Global Peace that His Excellency President Constantinescu presented worldwide. It is an initiative meant to connect people's expertise, researchers, diplomats, academics, and find ways of cooperation into bringing peace in troubled areas. We also have a project dedicated to the challenges of the 21st century, tackled from a cultural diplomacy perspective. And of course, given that we are covering most of our project also in a historical manner, we have a project dedicated to discovering the historical background, the current trends, and the future perspectives of what cultural diplomacy actually is. We have to go back to the roots to understand its evolution and provide means for further improvement. Our third main program focuses on pure history, because we at the Institute, we have projects which aim to anticipate the future by analyzing the present, but very important, capitalizing and learning the lessons of the past. And it is here that we are focusing on Levantine sources, which we consider to be an opportunity for 21st century Western civilization, because the roots of Western civilization actually lie in the Levant. And the projects here focus on the center of Levant and its role in the development of Abrahamic religions. The Balkans are of interest as well. We also focus on the historical perspective connected to the idea of peace, governance, and society in the area, also with a law juridical component. We're focusing on the civilization of the Lower Danube area from prehistoric times to modernity. We focus on particular cultures such as the Jews present in Romanian culture. And we have two other projects in this area dedicated to how should I say it, mapping the Levant. It's called actually the Levantin cartography. And one of our specialists works on creating maps of the Levant. Some of them are also present on the website, and you can access them. And creating connections between maps and areas, geographic areas, and the problems that occurred in that area. And the final project of this program is dedicated to creating a bibliographic platform where most of the how should I say, main Levantine bibliography will be digitalized and put into a virtual library that you here in Berlin and from wherever you are can access. We are still in process of scanning and digitalizing the books, and what makes us different from other institutions is that we have how should I say, a lot of rare books, exquisite ones that could not be accessed easily in a regular library, not to mention in a virtual manner. But we're doing our best, and we're doing constant efforts in that regard to have them accessible to everyone interested in the Levant and its study. Our fourth main program is dedicated to a very particular area of Romania, which is Dobrogea. If you have ever been to Romania, you might have visited Dobrogea. It has an exit to the Black Sea, and it has the wonderful Danube Delta. If not, we strongly encourage you to visit us, and of course Dobrogea, once the pandemic and the traveling conditions get softer. But we chose Dobrogea as an emblem and how should I say, as a poster child for what the millennial civilizations of Levant mean. We've concentrated our research on Dobrogea in two main projects. One dedicated to the natural and cultural heritage, which we consider to be a source of sustainable development in this area. And later on in the Q&A session, I can explore more about it. And the second one is a very enticing project, one that I particularly like, is that dedicated to the multiculturalism of the Dobroja region. We have 18 ethnic groups living there. And it's very interesting to see the fact that these ethnic groups have maintained their traditional spirit and their customs, their history, even the gastronomy remains the same. We call Dobroja to be an ethnic mosaic. And if you have a visit, you will experience it by yourself. And these Dobroja projects, apart from focusing on ethnicity and cultural heritage, they also focus on the natural aspect of heritage. And we're exploring it geologically. We have delegations from the Institute doing periodical field works there. We have partnerships with the Faculty of Biology in Constanța, at the University of Constanța. And we are exploring the area from ground to the cultural aspect. So we are covering it from a multi-perspective. And our final, I should say last but not least, our final program is dedicated to the academic environment and the sustainable regional development. And it is here that we are capitalizing on the geological experience of both President Constantinescu and Professor Grigorescu, working on establishing a connection in one project between minerals and biology in a holistic approach to the natural research. And the second one aims to create a UNESCO geopark in Dobroja. Professor Dan Grigorescu, who also works with the Institute and is the scientific director of the Institute, has a great experience in working in the UNESCO geopark framework. He's the one who created another UNESCO and actually recorded another UNESCO geopark in Romania. It's Țara Hațegului, where he discovered from what I know, the only exemplary of dwarf dinosaurs. And we also have digged their dinosaur eggs, which can be found in the Geology Museum in Bucharest. So we're trying to replicate the Institute, the geopark, the UNESCO geopark from Țara Hațegului to Dobroja as well. And we also have educational programs because we thought that it's important to have, as an Institute of Advanced Studies, not to concentrate just on the researchers. We thought of addressing students, just like you, experience a dialogue with students and help, how should I say, create a bidirectional relationship. Students interested in the area could could benefit from the expertise of the professors working in the programs, and at the same time the professors could further explore and expand their research base. And we have the annual School of Byzantine and Post-Byzantine Study, which now has in preparation its 4th edition. We have the annual Interdisciplinary School of Classical Languages and Literature, Oriental Studies and Egyptology, which both of them will take place in the fall of this year. And from what I know from my colleague working on them, they will be online. So we can provide you with the Zoom link and you can attend the lectures of the professors, which are both Romanian and foreign professors working and participating in this. They're in the format of summer school. So if you have attended before the pandemic summer schools, I'm sure you understand the concept of it. And we also have the annual School of Arabic Language and Culture. From what I understand, it's the 1st edition, right? Yes, and we're still working on the preparations. And apart from this, as I was telling you before about the projects dedicated to Dobroja, we also have a partnership between the Institute and the Faculty of Biology in Constanța, and Professor Grigorescu is coordinating master thesis and taking students in the field work. So we have this applied component to the master degrees in Constanța, just as before with the masters in Cluj and in Bucharest, focusing on cultural diplomacy, which we also hope to revitalize and take forward. So this is a brief institution to understand and get familiar with what we at the Levant Institute, or the Levantines, as I like to call ourselves, we do back in Bucharest. And I will take this opportunity to invite you there once the pandemic traveling conditions get better. And this is the website. You can see on the website the agenda with all the events. You can see features of the video conferences that we had. Because of the pandemic, the whole work became online. And you can see some of our publications which can be bought and are, yes, you can see them here, the publications. Okay, the International Journal, okay. No, I think it's, well, it should work, but I will not take longer time because we have 2 other presentations. So these are this is the Levant Institute website. Feel free to access it and get familiar with us. And now I will go back to the PowerPoint presentations. We have 2 main projects. I will start with the pandemic first, because I think this is the event that united us all. Not just in misery, because I'm sure we've experienced it, but also got us to work harder, connect, and explore the small, actually, the minimum possibilities of connection that we got on account of the restrictions and regulations that I'm sure you all experienced as we did in Bucharest. And I will go into can I use the F5 and get into full screen? Or
I'm not sure that can get out.
Okay, can I? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so as part of the program dedicated to the anticipation of the future, we launched last year in April 2020 the World Post-COVID-19 Pandemic. At first, it was an online platform which we thought we could use to gather opinions, suggestions, recommendations from the partners of the Institute on how they saw the end of the pandemic. Because when the pandemic started, none of us thought that it would last for so long. Of course, we had not the memories, because none of us lived the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic, but we knew about the records, we knew about the experience, but we never thought that, given the technology and the advancement of the medical field, that the pandemic would last so much. And unfortunately, or let's say for us, fortunately, it lasted because we capitalized it, and we did a lot of capitalizing on it. So in April 2020, we launched an online platform where some of the collaborators of the Institute starting presenting their opinions. Okay. President Constantinescu and I have been managing the project ever since, because when we launched it, we thought it's an online platform, we can have a forum of discussion, but later on we turned it into an editorial project, and this fall we will have a book coming out of this project. When we started the project, we started also gathering partnerships, and we signed partnerships agreement with the World Academy of Art and Science, for which we are also an center of excellence, and we are the only center of excellence of the World Academy of Art and Science in the world. Also with the Berlin Academy of Cultural Diplomacy, Mark Donfried here was a very eager participant for the platform, and was among the first responders when we launched the invitation. Also the Marmara Group Foundation, the Nizami Ganjavi International Center, and the Black Sea University Network. We also have other partners, but that would mean tons of slides, so I thought to keep it short. Okay. Going further, any kind of project that you launch needs to have some questions. You have to start from somewhere. Okay, what did we want to do with this project? Not just have another platform that would cover website space and that would be it. So, given that we're not medical professionals, given that our contribution is in a very scientific manner, we thought that we should have a different approach, not just focus on empirical theories like data, focusing, okay, this is just another pandemic and should we compare it with the 1918 or the Black Plague or so on. So we thought we should focus more on the people. And we thought about another perspective, which means focusing on fields that would be affected by the pandemic and not just academia.
okay, and research, because it was obvious they would be affected. My first experience was, I remember even now, 16th of March, when I got an email from my university, because I'm also teaching at a private university in Romania. I got an email saying, okay, from now on you're going online. I don't want, the dean actually said, none of the professors should come at the university, none of the students, so we're going online. Let's see how we can adapt to that. So we thought about the fields that would be affected. We thought about the dangers that the human society would experience, because with any kind of crisis, and this is nonetheless a crisis, with any kind of crisis, you've got a lot of dangers that you'd experience other than the ones that you foresaw. Because, okay, you've got a pandemic, the obvious result is you've got people infected or dying, okay? But we thought, okay, what's next? What's beyond this, this idea? We also thought about the instruments that would be necessary, and we thought of interrogating what kind of instruments would be necessary to rebuild the world, because that was the question we started with. How will the world be like after the pandemic? It was a bit rash of us to think of that in March, but we started readapting afterwards when you saw that month after month the pandemic would prolong and the restrictions and so on. But we were aware at the time that this is a crisis we must learn from, and we thought what kind of instruments could we create that could be used in future crises. You know, of course, that no crisis resembles the other, but there must be patterns, there must be instruments, there must be ideas that you could use up to a point and then create others, launch others, and so on. And of course, the regular questions: how will our lives look like after the pandemic? What would be different? And of course, how will the future leadership look like? And based on these questions, we created several aims to identify vulnerabilities, to formulate sustainable measures and instruments that would address these vulnerabilities and counteract them in the future, to establish operational guidelines in crisis situations. But mind you, again, I'm saying we're not doctors. We're not technical specialists. We could provide these operational guidelines based on the contributions of the specialists and the practitioners that we got them from. And you will see more about that later. To capitalize on the available opportunities and lessons learned from managing the pandemic, because that would be possible. And you know that any kind of crisis, it's an opportunity to learn from and to be able to be more alert in the future, and to identify priority fields for concerted actions on the post-pandemic reconstructions. Again, based on the input that we got from our specialist. And these are the main fields of interest, because, as I told you, our main focus was on the people. The pandemic is not about governments, it's not about economy. Of course it is, but it's mostly about people, because people build governments, they build the economy, they keep the economy going. If you don't have people, there's nothing else left. So we thought, which are the fields that people might be experiencing acute difficulties, and we focused on education, culture, scientific research, technological advancement, natural resources, of course, biodiversity, sociology, psychology, cultural diplomacy, ethics and moral philosophy, civic responsibility, and of course, leadership. But of course, these fields of interest are not restricted. So if one of the participants, the contributors who sent us materials, decided to explore another field of activity, we're okay with it. Okay. And what is striking is, and that's what I'm saying, that we capitalize on the pandemic. We moved everything online. Even at the Institute, we worked from home for several months, 2 months actually, and then we got back to work, but in a different pattern. And we had a lot of video conferences, because people could no longer meet face to face, but they would meet online via Zoom, via WebEx, Teams, and via any other instrument that would be available. And these are just some of the video conferences where we discussed the project, we presented it, and we got further in the research that we performed. Altogether, there are around 22 video conferences just dedicated to the pandemic project. So we were very active at the time. Paradoxically, when the world was slowing down, the Levant Institute was speeding up. So that was the paradox of the pandemic for us. And these are, and I will go further into the just to say a small presentation of the people who sent us contribution. These are the preliminary perspectives that we got from just, let's call them a bit of conclusions that we gathered from all the contributions so far. We have around 20 contributions now gathered, and we're still waiting for some of them in progress. So we will reach around 30 contributions that would get into a larger volume. So the conclusions were that the pandemic left in the background several issues that were not resolved, that actually got worse, such as the migrant issue or political rifts between countries. Also, there is an increasing pressure to create an anti-fragile world, because all specialists took this fragility of the world as the main reason why the pandemic occurred. And of course, the natural instrument that everyone was referring to was the idea of building resilience. Also, we identified the need to have a better focus on multilateralism. That would be the ideal instrument in as far as leadership and decision-maker interaction would be concerned, not just for states but also for organizations, because I'm sure as you've followed the news, you could see that there was some faux pas of the organization, main organizations, not mention the European Union or the United Nations, but that was in the beginning when everyone was searching for its way. Also, it brought to us attention the need to simultaneously tackle issues across several fields, because the pandemic created an interconnection between fields. Okay, education the educational sector was closed down, but that had implications not just for students, it had for parents, because some of them had to take a sort of leave to be able to stay at home with their children who went online and could not manage the idea. Or some people actually lost their jobs, and I'm referring here to the administrative personnel of schools and university, because there was no need for anyone to clean, to heat the buildings, and so on. The same was valid for other fields of activity. For instance, the big offices, which are now empty, and the personnel that was serving them is at home, unemployed, looking for jobs. And finally, this is a point brought to us by one of the anthropologists writing for the Institute, who is now also a member of the Civic Council of the Institute. We need to preserve our values and humanity as the main weapons against the pandemic and against a crisis of such sort. And now I will go briefly through the contributions. You have here the name and the picture of the contributions. These are not all, because I would be talking till late in the evening. And these are, I put on the title so that you can get an idea of the topics that were explored by the contributors. The idea of how to deal with the pandemic in a global society. Also, how to explore sovereign and absolutism and the impact of the pandemic on international institutions. Also, the impact on the planet given by the pandemic, the fact that the pandemic was in fact an asymmetric shock, and how to connect the pandemic with what is happening, or what was happening in fact before the pandemic, with regards to the culture of peace, which was one of the fields that was somehow put on standby, because okay, everyone was dying, there was no cure, so no one thought of, okay, what's happening with the countries that are fighting, or with the people that are being abused or discriminated by other people. No one thought there were a priority, so it was a priority to find a cure and have people survive. So these were some of the issues that were left behind, and we tried to bring to the attention of the public that, given that they were left behind, this accelerated the difficulty and the negative impact of this issue. We also focused on the pandemic from an anthropological point of view, focusing on our humanness, and this is the anthropologist that I was mentioning before, who urged us to find our humanity. We focused on it from an economic point of view. Also, from a sustainable development point of view, having also an official perspective in that regard from the government of Romania, from Laszlo Borbei, who is the head of the Department for Sustainable Development, which is an authority on sustainable development in Romania. We had also a natural environment and protect the planet point of view on the pandemic. We also focused on digitalization and the impact of the pandemic in education, on food security, and on nutrition, on healthcare. Dr. Spiru here is a specialist in gerontology and geriatry, and she's currently heading the European Commission Committee for Stress. So she gave us an important perspective on the impact of the pandemic, not just on healthcare in general, but also on the vulnerable categories of healthcare, which are the elderly. We also had a perspective on diplomacy. How could you do diplomacy in COVID times when you cannot move freely, when you can no longer have meetings with other diplomats? We also had two views comparing the analysis. These are the contributions that have a more theoretical approach. It's a kind of a literature review, both of them, exploring the main writings on the pandemics, and there were several larger writings on the pandemic. Also, we had a legislative perspective, focusing on the pandemic as a political systemic crisis. Saulo Jose Castali Bahia here is a federal judge in Brazil, so he gave us the perspective of a legal practitioner, and we also had the perspective of the pandemic as a systemic stress test, the impact on several fields of activity from the stress that it impressed on those fields. This is a perspective, the one by Mariana Bozeșan is a perspective on what did integral investing experience, the field of integral investing experience throughout the pandemic. And the other one from David Harris focuses on how the pandemic influenced what we thought to be normal and how we experienced the normal of our lives. And also we had some lessons of the pandemic, which President Constantinescu here tried to draw, focusing on the global health crisis, which affected so many fields and was in fact an opportunity for creating a new political project. So for all those interested in contributing, I was the contact link, because I was the project manager of the project. And going further very quickly in the second project, while we were working on this, we were experiencing research focusing on what was happening worldwide, because you cannot have a project without having an acute knowledge. Okay, can I have a little bit of help here with making it a full screen? Thank you. I'm usually using the F5, but it's not working. So when we were doing our research, we also focused on what was happening with people, what was happening with states, and what was happening with organizations. And it was the time that we reached the idea of organizations that the European Union was in fact launching this larger project, the Conference on the Future of Europe, which was supposed to be launched a year ago in May last year, in May 2020, but because of the pandemic and because no one foresaw what would happen, it was postponed. So they launched it this year. They launched it officially on May 9th, but unofficially 2 weeks earlier, in mid-April. And this project is meant to gather opinions. I'm sure you know about it, so I will not lecture you about it. It's meant to gather opinions and create change for the European Union based on the input of the citizens. And as we were growing aware of what was happening, we thought at the Institute, given that we have so much research conducted on institutions and countries, okay, let's direct that research from the pandemic, which is already covered and it's in the final final stages towards being published, and it will be a very large volume combining both international perspectives and Romanian perspectives, and also an overview of what was happening on a global level. We also thought that we should focus on the European Union because it was closer. We're a member state of the European Union. We were experiencing the policies and the faux pas, the drawbacks of the European Union in the beginning, and also the help of the European Union. So we thought of using the moment of the official launch of the Conference on the Future of Europe to launch another project of anticipatory analysis of the future, dedicated to the European Union, between hopes and anxiety, but that would present the Romanian perspective. We didn't think of another project that would reiterate what other specialists, researchers, members of parliament, strategists, and so on actually said before. We thought that we should capitalize on the Romanian school of thought, the Romanian specialists, the Romanian faculties focusing on European studies. So we launched a project entitled The European Union Between Hopes and Anxiety, focusing on the creation of a Europe of the future, which would be either a political, economic, or spiritual union. And the platform would entail Romanian thought, values, concepts, and a strategy. President Constantinescu is the scientific coordinator of this platform. And this is the framework in which our platform, connected with the European one, actually took shape. Because we analyzed what was happening, which is the lack of proper management of previous crises, the fact that the European Union was becoming more and more economically cohesive, but not as cohesive on a cultural level. And we at the Institute are focusing on culture and civilization as well. And also we were experiencing this need, and we saw this need of creating a balance between cohesion and competition between member states. So we thought that this would be the appropriate framework for the development of a project dedicated to the European Union. But we were not just another project, as I told you. It was a project that would be spearheaded by Romania. It was the Romanian version, the Romanian school of thought, actually, on the European Union, that would be moderated by Romania. And that would bring together both enthusiasts of the European project, but also skeptics of the European project. So we're not trying to discriminate. Everyone is asked to participate and to give their views, of course, argumented properly. And the issues that would be tackled, these are just a few: economic, social, cultural, and educational issues, but we're also focusing on digitalization and transport, which are the main topics of the Conference on the Future of Europe, and also on the general framework of the European Union from 2019 to 2024. So the idea was to facilitate a debate that would lead to the creation of a strategy, but with a humanist component. This is our added value, the humanist component, because we are, of course, an institute, an advanced studies institute focusing on culture and civilization. And given our research, Europe is not just about politics. Of course, it's in Brussels, it's in Strasbourg, but it's also about people and different cultures that need to be brought together and to revive the mantra united in diversity. So we were thinking that we should uphold this mantra and explore it better. And of course, just like any other project, we have questions focusing on the future of the European Union, but also on Europe, the future of Europe, the instruments that Europe could create and benefit from in dealing with future crises. And also, we wanted to see whether this crisis was a trigger for development, was an opportunity, or was a fallback. So these are the questions. Contributions that have already been posted on the website. They are also available in the English version of the website. The first is the essay by President Constantinescu, Europe of the Future, a political, economic, or spiritual union. This essay is actually the starting point of the platform. There's also another essay by Professor ANDREI, former Minister of Education in Romania, focusing on the future of the European Union. Professor MARGA is highly dedicated to exploring European topics. Also, Professor Victor Neumann wrote an essay focusing on Europe and the concept of multiple identities. We have another perspective from Tahsin Jamil, professor of Turkology and also former ambassador of Romania to Azerbaijan, focusing on East and West at the beginning of the millennium, with the European Union in the center of its work. And we also have Professor CORIN Braga from the Babeș-Bolyai University, focusing on a more cultural perspective of Europe, European imaginarium and cultural heritage, exploring this topic. Again, I'm the contact liaison for this project, so all those interested in contributing or finding ideas, please write me. So, and this concludes my presentation with just a brief mention. Again, this project is not meant to bring together ideas that have already been discussed. It's the Romanian view, the Romanian perspective on the European Union, because Romania, even if it's one of the late member states, it became a member state in 2007, and ever since we just had another accession in 2013 with Croatia. But we've experienced a lot. We gathered a lot of experience from our negotiation process and the steps that we had to take. And at the time, the European studies, the European Union disciplines became part of the Romanian university curricula. And professors that used to teach history or European studies had to learn from scratch this new field of educational activity, and they grew into a very powerful and very opinionated school of thought. And we thought that it was high time that this European school of thought can be put to the front of those interested and learn from our expertise, just like we learned from the expertise of previous member states who became member states earlier than in our case. So the European Union project is dedicated to creating a Romanian perspective, whereas the project dedicated to the pandemic combines the international perspective with the Romanian perspective, because there are two different perspectives all together in a, how should I say, multilateral, because I used already the concept of multilateralism, in a multilateral and geographical as well as multi-field perspective dimension, let's just call it. So this pandemic project is more international, whereas this one is more national, if I may. And given that I've spoken so much, but I'm sorry for that. It's my first lecture in a year and a half with a public in front of me and not just a screen, which I've been doing for the past year and a half. And I thank you for your attention. If there are questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I invite you all to access the website of the Institute and the website of these two projects and give us our thoughts and ideas, and we look forward to have you participating. Thank you. I'm taking the water with me. I need it.
Or do you want to stand there in case there's questions or comments? Or, yeah.
Yes.
This is your chance. For Oana, for Branda,
It's a moment of one.
Okay, okay. Ladies first.
Yes. It's not. Yes, please.
I just wanted to know how we can access to this PowerPoint or like presentation, you said, if we can.
Well, I can leave them to you and you can disseminate them.
Minnie has them. It's actually Minnie's computer, so you can get it from Minnie later.
Okay, thank you.
Or we're going to have Esteban send it.
And you also have my email address in the PowerPoint, so feel free to reach out.
How many students currently in
How many students? Where?
have been studying in this institute?
Well, for now,
Like it's very young, 2019.
17.
2017, sorry, but yeah, I'm very curious how many students right now, and they are providing like master degree, PhD, or bachelor, which exactly, and then how many faculties?
Well, for now, we have partnerships with the history faculty in Bucharest, at the University of Bucharest and with the history faculty in Constanța and the biology faculty in Constanța. For now, and of course the pandemic was a very bad moment from this point of view because we couldn't have them take part in internships. We have internships agreement, and I think before the pandemic we had around 20. I think Professor Mihuț brought some of her students to participate in internships at the institute, and Professor Grigorescu is working in Constanța with the master degree in the Faculty of Biology. And he's guiding dissertation papers. I don't know how many dissertation papers he coordinated, but his courses and his experience are available to the whole master degree program. So for now, we only have these two, and of course the pandemic was a bad moment from that point of view because otherwise we would have brought more students. But as you said, we are a very young institution. We're celebrating 4 years in November this year. And before being able to bring students, the Romanian law asks of you to have the managerial team complete, to have the administrative complete, and afterwards you have the research team, and then you can bring students, create more partnerships that would involve students and faculties. But we also have partnerships with the National School of Political and Administrative Studies in Bucharest. We also have partnerships with the language faculty in Babeș-Bolyai, the Turcology Institute, and our partnerships, apart from bringing students to these internships, providing the opportunity to take part in internships, they also provided an opportunity for students to take part in these summer schools and provide expertise also for us, because I don't know how much you are aware, but also in Romania we have, for instance, I have a lot of students from mixed families, and they are fluent in Syriac, Arabic, Turkish, so we're always Greek also, and we also capitalize on them in their experience, of course, and their wish to participate in the institute and to take part in the great assets that we have, because we have an impressive library, we have expertise from the members and the researchers. Yes?
I will make some additions.
Yeah. So Cătălin Ștefan Popa is the director of the Cultural Diplomacy Department, and he's also working on the summer school, so he will provide you with more details in that regard.
So thank you for the opportunity. I wish to make some additions. Actually, regarding your question, actually we are an institution much more oriented into the direction of research. So we are doing research, and I would say the most of the people working in the institute have in their hand a PhD in abroad or in Romania, but the most of the people are specialists in the field. This is one point. Another point, the institute is very open to integrate students and to create the possibility to promote the work of the students. So, and we have for a moment some possibilities. There is a summer school in Byzantine studies, and this is open for everyone wishing to learn from the Byzantine culture. And there is another possibility to join our research group by an application for the School of Classical Studies, Egyptology, and Oriental Studies. And of course, we work now for another possibility to involve associate researchers. So if you are students who are going to study for PhD, of course you have the possibility soon to work together with us to make an application and to join our programs by such an possibility of associated researchers. Of course, we are going to implement different concepts in research, different programs, and I have the responsibility to develop some kind of work in this field. I am coordinator of two departments, the Department for History and Culture and the Department for Cultural Diplomacy. So this is from my side. If you have other questions.
If I may, shall I complement what you said? The two schools, the School of
Mhm.
Byzantine Study and the other one on Oriental language, at the end of the school, all the presentations, including those of students, master degree students and PhD students, are gathered in a volume which will be published, like a proceedings of the conference. So for those interested in pursuing an academic career, it would be a great opportunity to publish with renowned researchers. They're published in prestigious editorial publishing houses in Romania. So it's a great opportunity to create visibility for yourself also in the academic field.
So we are an institute for advanced studies. Our target is to progress and to involve different experts from the field, but of course we are aware of this much on this direction, to be in touch with students and to involve the work of the students into our programs. So if you have interest in this field and in such kind of cooperation, please follow the institute and our work. And I'm aware that your director will come into our direction with such kind of cooperation possibilities.
Actually, while you're up there, well, let me ask you a question too. What other opportunities would you suggest for the students and also the institute to support the Levant Institute? You know, how can we help, so to speak? How can we get involved? So in terms of research, it sounds like that would be one thing. In terms of publishing papers, I think that's a great opportunity for all of you. Are there other ideas, or how else can we support the work you're doing?
So I would propose a first step. We have a lot of projects in which we are organizing conferences, and conferences on a very high level. I gave you yesterday some examples. We have a project on the history of religions, and we are working on the topic of dialogue in the Abrahamic religions. That means to find concepts into the history until the modern time for coming together into religious thinking. And you are invited to join our conferences. I mean that organized on Zoom. It would be for a moment, I think, a very good opportunity to start into this direction to work together. This is one point. And of course, we are open for further suggestions from your side.
Well, I think one suggestion you already received in the form of a question, where the student asked, how many students do you have? And that's actually one of the issues on my list that I want to talk to the president about afterwards too. How could we do that? I think there would be an interest in actually having accredited programs dealing with cultural diplomacy in Levant. You were mentioning one of some of the stones in the way in order to make that happen, although what might be the most efficient way of doing that? In a sense, through partnership, you know, with another university, or that one tries to get that accreditation ourselves, or it sounds like there's many prerequisites. Is that in the pipeline, or what are the plans?
Sure, this can be a possibility maybe in the near future, but we are now working to get a very comprehensible group, a very good group and this is our target, to invite also associate researchers, and maybe when we are going to this I would say opportunity, then we are a group able to offer also teaching, and one of our very good lecturers in this field. He is a lecturer at a private university in Romania. I am also researcher at the Romania Academy. We are able to offer also teaching, but maybe this could be a second point in our agreement, if we are able to do this maybe in the next or in the next year.
Other questions or comments?
So if you have understanding questions, or please feel free to address this to us.
Well, then maybe a second round of applause.
Thank you.